Hey, welcome back to Perek Shemi of Yerushalmi Peah Daf. We are Halacha Hey. So we're bringing now, this is roughly page Samach Gimel, okay? So we're bringing now arguments about Peres Revoi, that's the grapes or the fruit that grows usually in the vineyard in the fourth year. One Machlokes talks about Peret and Oilus, whether remember the Oilus were the clusters that weren't formed correctly. The Peret was sort of the single unripe grapes. So Keren Revoi, which is your produce in the vineyard in the fourth year. But Shammai said if you want to redeem it on money, you don't have to add a fifth onto it. And Ein Lo Biur, and you have no obligation to be Mavai to get rid of it when there's the Biur Maestros, which is of course in the fourth year. Now incidentally, there's actually an argument if Revoi is only in a vineyard or other trees as well. But if you hold it applies with other trees, it's called Meta Revoi. Okay? But that's the side point. But what we said, so Karen Revoi, there's no din of adding a fifth, and also there's no chiyuv to remove the fruit in Biur Maestros. But Beis Hillel said Yeshlai. Yes, both of these obligations apply. Okay, to have a fifth and to do Biur. Now, what other din? But Shammai Omrim Yeshlai Peret. The Shammai say that Karen Revoi has the din of Peret and the Yeshlai Olalas. So all these other gleanings, the extras that go to the poor, just like Peres Chulin, you have these things. You have it with Karen Revoi as well. The Aniyim and the poor people who get it, take it to Yerushalmi to eat it there, or they redeem it and take the money to Yerushalmi. Okay? And the reason why Beis Hillel they say what they do, there's a Gzer Shom between Revoi and Masechet. Right, Masechet says, well, Master, it's Kodesh Hashem. And Revoi as well, the produce in the fourth year called period Kodesh. So they have a Gzer Shava. They say just like Masechet, you have to add a fifth, and there's a Biur, so Keren Revoi has the same thing. Okay? By the way, adding a fifth is only when you're paid your own Masechet. Right? If you're paid someone else's, you don't have to add the fifth. Okay. Beis Hillel say you can take the whole cuttings of the vineyards to the press there. You don't have to leave the Peret and the Oilus for the poor, because Peres Revoi, this Keren Revoi, is got Kedushas Revoi, it's like Hashem's money really, Mom and Gavaya. It's not really yours, and therefore it's partial from Matanas Aniyim. So he wants to say you don't have to leave the Peret and the Oilus of this Keren Revoi. Right? They hold like Rameh, that Masechet is considered like Mom and Gavaya, but you have a Rishus to eat in Yerushalmi. Okay, we've got Gzer Shava. So they learn Peres Revoi, yes, it's Mom and Gavaya, it's not really yours, so it's part of from the Matanas Aniyim. Okay? Let's see the more on this. Tani, we've learned this after Rebbe. When did Beis Shammai say you're part from the Chomesh and Biur? Ella, whereas the Shvius, when the fourth year is also in the Shemitah year. So the fourth year of the planting is the Shemitah year. It is the other years of the cycle. Then the Beis Shammai also agree that there is a din, you've got to have a fifth, and there is a biur applying as well. So the only exemption is when it's in the Shemitah year. Now, according to this Tana, Beis Shammai hold so they learned the whole idea from Masechet, and they hold we should compare them completely. Now, Kamada Tema, just like we say, Ein Masechet b'Shvius, no Masechet in Shvius, everything is Hefka, right? You're part from all Maestros. So Dechmase, so similarly, Ein Etzravai b'Shvius. So the whole Chiyuvim of being Poiderit, adding a fifth, Biur, doesn't apply during Shemitah, the whole thing's Hefka. Well, Me'atin, that's the case, Alihi, like Kedusha. It should have no Kedusha at all during Shemitah. You should eat it where you like, even outside Yerushalmi. Just like Masechet has got no Kedusha during Shemitah, the same thing should apply. Why do Beis Shammai say that there's no Chomesh, there's no Biur, but it's mashma the other Revoi is applying? So the Gemara answers that only like the din of the fifth and Biur, that's what they learn from Masechet. In that way, that Masechet doesn't apply in Shemitah. But Kedushasa, the idea of the sanctity of it, that you have to eat in Yerushalmi, Me'enav Lamdu, that's learned from Revoi itself, from its own source it has. It says, Kodesh Hilulim, Harehu Kodesh is treated as if it's holy. You praise Hashem on it. which is like Bikurim. And just like the first fruits of Bikurim, you can't eat them outside Yerushalayim. So also you cannot eat Kerem Ravoi outside Yerushalayim. So whatever year it is, you can't eat it outside Yerushalayim. And since we've learned it from Bikurim, even in the Shemitah year, right, there is mitzvahs Bikurim even in the Shemitah year. Although everything's Hefka, it should be potter from Bikurim, but there is a mitzvah with the first fruit that budded in the 6th year and got cut in the Shemitah year, that they're not Hefka. Right? So that's what we're talking about here. And although it says here, it's mashma, there is properly a din Bikurim in the 7th year. Rashi al Torah seems to say this. Peres Shvius is Hefka, but the time when it grew, it was still in the reshus of the owners. That's basically, if you hold that Peres Shvius is not Hefka on its own right, it's a mitzvah to be mafkir it after it's grown. So it could be it grew, okay? So it could be, so it could be it started growing. Thank you. At the time when it started growing, the owner was already Chaim in Bikurim before it became the Hefka stage. Okay, let's carry on. Now, if Netar or Kerem Ravoi of Shemitah should be permitted for an Einen, of course, is someone between the Ptira and the burial, right? Now, he's not allowed to eat Masechet. So just like an Einen can't eat Masechet, so we should say the other dinim apply. Our Mishnah is mashma, the din of the 5th applies, the biur that was potter, but other dinei ravoi, it seems it is chal, even with shmita. So the Gemara answers, the makar for ravoi for an oilen is actually learned from elsewhere. It's not learned from Masechet. Tani, we learned kodesh magid shehu asel oilen. We have a pasuk which we're using from the actual pasuk of Kerem Ravoi, that Kerem Ravoi is like kodshim, and an oilen can't eat it. So even without Masechet, which doesn't apply during Shemitah, but the Kerem Ravoi, the Issur of Oinen still applies. Right? It's not learned from Masechet, and the Issur applies even during the Shemitah year. Now the Gemara comes to what we said. Beis Shammai learned Kedushas Ravoi from Bikurim. So now if Beis Shammai actually learned Kilimud Ravoi from Bikurim, now we could learn Biur and from Bikurim. Well, let's learn everything from Bikurim. Even during Shemitah, you should have to do Biur on your Kerem Ravoi, just like Bikurim. And yet Beis Shammai parted you from Shemitah from Biur. Why not learn it from Bikurim? There it's Chai Biur. You have to remove it. So the Gemara answers, we can't learn Biur Ravoi from Bikurim. Begin the Rav Shimon. They hold like Rav Shimon. Hapoita min Biur. He says, no, Bikurim, you don't have to get rid of it. So the only makar for biur is Masechet, and it's got a din like Masechet that does not apply in Shemitah, because it seems they hold out of Shimon. Now the Gemara comes back to the idea that according to Beis Shammai, so dinner Ravoi shouldn't apply during Shemitah if it's learned from Masechet. Okay? Now it says in Tosefta, Beis Shammai agree, we don't redeem Ravoi if it's connected to the ground, even during Shemitah. We can't be paid of that. And that's one of these dinim that's learned from Masechet. So based on that, if the issur to redeem Ravoi, which is still attached to the ground, is only learned from Masechet, so v'yipada, we should be able to redeem Ravoi in Shemitah while it's still growing, even while it's connected to the ground, because that does not apply with Masechet during Shemitah, so it shouldn't apply with the Ravoi either. Right? Why should you not be able to redeem it during Shemitah if it's learned from Masechet? And it's a very good question, but we have no answer. It sounds like it's Xer Shava to Masechet. Other Rishonim learn it's only Drabanan Din. We don't know how can you be paid at something when it's still growing? How do you give a value to it? How do you work out a value to it? You see, you don't know the weight of it or anything. So that's why maybe you can't be paid it while it's still attached to the ground, you see? Alright. Tani, we've learned. Now, Beis Shammai only parted from Wachaimish and Abir during the Shemitah year. Now, there is another opinion. He said, Echad Shvi'is v'Echad Shach. Any of the 7 years. Beis Shammai Yomrim. Beis Shammai say, Ein Lai Chaimish v'Ein Lai Bir Kerem Ravoi. You never have to add a 5th. And there's no din biur any of the 7 years, according to this opinion. Now, what is that? Let's see why. According to this Tana, this Yerushalmi Peah Daf, Beis Shammai only learned they did Netar Ravoi with Masechet Kol Ikar. they learned the din of netter avoy from Maser Sheni at all. Basically, they're not. There's no source. They didn't learn at all from Maser Sheni. Maser Sheni you have to add a fifth. Maser Sheni you have to remove. But according to this opinion, we didn't learn Ken Ravai from it at all. Well, if that's the case, Me'ata, if that's the case, you didn't learn anything from Maser Sheni, Al Yehi like Kedusha. It should have no holiness at all, according to Beis Shammai. You can eat it where you like. But our Mishnah says, there's only an argument about Chomesh and Bil. Other dinim do apply. They didn't argue on everything. They didn't say you can eat it where you like. So the Gemara answers, Kedushasai Me'elav. The holiness of Ken Ravai comes from itself, not from elsewhere, not from Maser Sheni. Kedushasai Me'elav Lam, but they learn from its own source. It says Kodesh Hilulim. Areil Kodesh is holy, Shekoin Alav Sahalel. It's like Halel, it's like Bikurim, and therefore it's holy. Now, if you're telling me Beis Shammai didn't learn Ravai from Maser Sheni, well, if that's the case, we can have the same question we asked before. The Hebutz about the Einain. But then an Einain should be able to eat it. The whole prohibition for an Einain only comes because Maser Sheni an Einain can eat. If the Isur of Chilas Ravai for an Einain is learned from Maser Sheni, if according to Beis Shammai you're telling me now we don't learn from Maser Sheni, then there's no reason to forbid an Einain. We're eating Ravai. But the Mishnah is mashma that the whole argument was about Chomesh, but other dinim Ravai, it does apply. The Isur Einain does apply. So the Gemara answers that the source for Ravai for an Einain is actually learned from elsewhere. Tani, we learned in the Brisa, Kodesh Hilulim, Magid Shu Asur Einain. That tells me that Peres Ravai, Karen Ravai, the produce of the vine, Binyan, the fourth year, is forbidden for an Einain, just like Kodshim. Okay? Now, we're going to come back to what we said, that Beis Shammai might have learned the holiness from Bikurim. Now, if they actually hold that you can learn Ravai from Bikurim, we could have learned Bil from Bikurim as well. Bil. Then just like Bikurim, we said you have to get rid of it. Why don't you have to get rid of Ravai as well? Why did Beis Shammai say there's no din Bil on that? So my answers, Beis Shammai.
It's a very different Gersa.
Oh, right, okay. Beis Shammai, so what, is the Gersa not the same at all?
No, we go to the Bayi Kani de Ravo.
Oh, well, I'm coming to that soon.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that soon, okay. So there's a few extra lines in the Giz, okay. So the Gemara answers, Beis Shammai can't learn Ravai from Bikurim, begin to Rav Shimon Paita B'Bil, because Rav Shimon holds there's no such thing as Bil with Bikurim. Okay, fair enough. So we have all these different opinions. Is there Bil? Do we learn it from Bikurim? Do we learn it from Maser Sheni? Do we not learn it from Maser Sheni? Do we learn it a bit from Maser Sheni, but not for everything? That's what these opinions have been discussing. Now, if you're going to tell me Beis Shammai didn't learn their din from Maser Sheni, and the Tosefta says, Beis Shammai agree, you can't redeem Ravai when it's still connected to the ground. Now, based on that, well, that's all very well, but according to Beis Shammai, we should allow you to redeem it, because the Isur to be paida b'mechuba is learned from Maser Sheni. If you're telling me we don't learn from Maser Sheni, then why can't you redeem it when it's connected to the ground? So a very good question, and there is no answer. Okay, back to our Gersa that you have there. Rav Zira boy Kurabo. Rav Zira asked in front of Ravo, B'nayin shul tom pidyon. How do we know that it means pidyon? That means you can be mechalel on money. If you want to eat it outside Yerushalmi, you have to redeem it. And the din, the source of chilul, is learned from Maser Sheni. If you're telling me now, according to Beis Shammai, we don't learn Ravai from Maser Sheni, how do you know you need to redeem Keren Ravai if you want to have it outside Yerushalmi? So the Gemara answers, it says Kodesh Hilulim. It could have said Kodesh Chilulim. Now, Kodesh, it could be, it means a reference of being Mechalelit. Now it says Hilulim. Now it's a Hey. It's not a Hes. And a Hes and a Hey are very different letters. But even so, Lemis Anin Rabbanon, the Chachamim did not refrain from sometimes interchanging Bein Hey and Ches for the sake of droshes. So the letters are similar in their reading. I don't know how a Hey and a Het are different, similar, I do not know. But nevertheless, the idea that they are interchangeable, so we're learning it's holy, but it's chilulim. So Keren Ravai, you want to have it in Yerushalayim, otherwise you have to redeem it, take the money to Yerushalayim. Tani Ravai B'Nagri, Kuribla, Rabbi Shmuel, the Brisa of Rabbi Shmuel, in the view of Beis Shammai, is said as far as Maser Sheni. It says, Im Goel Yigal Ish, Min Ma'asroi, Chamishisa Yosef Olav. So this passage tells you, when you redeem Maser Sheni, you have to add a fifth. And the Torah used the word alav, right? It's on him. On him, he has to add a fifth when he redeems it. Parat lenetar ravai she'ein chayav en olav chomesh. To exclude Karen Ravai, or the other produce from the other trees, if you hold of that, the other opinions, then you're not chayav to redeem. Even the owner does not have to add a fifth. And from here we learn Beis Shammai to pater the extra fifth. Ravai, right? You don't have to pay the extra fifth when you redeem it. Now that's all very well. That's in Beis Shammai. Let's look at the view of Beis Hillel. The Chazav Atana. Then Revival learns another brayso of Rishmael, Kumai, in front of Rabbi. He says, in Gal Yigal, double wording. Shtei Geul, I say, there's two types of redemptions which the pasuk is talking about. Achas the Masa Sheni, but Achas the Neta Ravai. So one is Masa Sheni and one is the other produce of the fourth year. They both need adding a fifth. So this is where Beis Hillel learns that you do have to add a fifth. When you redeem your Karen Ravai, you do have to add a fifth. Right. Now we're going to bring a Mishnah and explain Rebbe's view in Beis Shammai. Talmud Taninan, we've learned in Trumas. Rabbi Yehuda said, Ein lenachri Karen Ravai. So now if a guy has a vineyard, there's no din of Karen Ravai. Chacham said there is a din Karen Ravai. So it's a Nachri's vineyard, okay? Or Rabbi Lazar, Kinimas, this is where you learn it. Ein Karen Ravai b'Suria kalika. There's no Karen Ravai in Syria. Syria, of course, was the area which was conquered by Dovid HaMelech, right? But not proper Eretz Yisrael. So these things you have to add. First of all, the Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim was in Syria, not in Eretz Yisrael proper. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, all the fruit in Syria, actually all the fruit is potter from Syria. Not just Paris, not just the Gaisha vineyard, all the fruit is potter in Syria. The Mishnah says an argument about the Gaisha vineyard to tell you that according to Chachamim, the guy's fruit is chayav in Syria. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, everything is potter in Syria. So the Gemara explains, where did Rabbi Yehuda learn his din? That there's no din ravai in Syria at all. Rabbi Ibi Amar Kumir of Zira, he said from Zira Shem of Raza, Asiyad Rabbi Yehuda, this din of Rabbi Yehuda, that there's no Karen ravai in Syria, fits in Beis Shammai, like Beis Shammai, but Darted the Rebbe, and according to the way Rebbe understood it. So Kamada Beis Shammai Amri, just like they said, the whole source was in Masechet. That's where we learned it from. And we should equate them completely. Now, Kamada Tema Ein Masechet b'Shmit, you told me during Shmita year, there's no Masechet. So Dechba says similarly, Ein Netar Ravai b'Shmit, so also Karen Ravai, or Netar Ravai, which is the same idea. Again, not chayav a fifth, you no din biur during Shmita, just like Masechet, no such thing in Shmita. Kain Rabbi Yehuda, so also Yehuda said, that Netar Ravai was learned from Masechet, and Yehuda said, yes, we learn one from the other, they're both the same. So Kamada Tema, just like we say, En Masechet in Syria, there's no Masechet in Syria either, so you told me there's nothing in Shemitah, there's nothing in Syria. So just like he said that, so also there's no Netar Ravai in Syria either. So he wants to say that there's nothing. Right, just each one follows the other. So what do we say? There's no Master Sheni in Shemitah, so Netar Ravai doesn't need a fifth to be Paiderit, or Bil in Shemitah. And just like Yehuda says, the whole idea comes from Master Sheni, and just like no Master Sheni in Syria, that area above Eretz Yisrael, so also Netar Ravai doesn't apply in Syria. Now, Amalei, Rav Zira said to Bibi. No, he says, no, they're not really saying the same thing here, these two opinions. You're saying, well, Beis Shammai, Rav Yehuda, Beis Shammai, they're all the same. He says, they're not. He says, Chamim ma'ama. Look and see what Beis Shammai said, and you'll see, you can't say Rav Yehuda holds like Beis Shammai. Lo yama, when did Beis Shammai say Ella? They said that Ravai in Shemitah, during the Shemitah year, they said, Ein lo chomesh, you don't have to redeem it by adding a fifth. Ein lo bil, you don't have to get rid of it. Hashar kol advarim, all the other dinim, apply. Yeshloi. They apply even during Shemitah. You'll have to take it to Shalayim, whatever it is. If you're saying Rabbi Yehuda's din is based on the view of Beis Shammai, he should have said, Chomesh and Bil don't apply in Syria. But he said, there's no Kedushas Ravai at all in Syria. Nothing applies. It must be that the Pshat in Rabbi Yehuda is very different. And this is where you have to explain it. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Ein lenachri Karen Ravai b'Syria. Rabbi Yehuda says, look, a guy's vineyard in Syria, does not have a din Ravai, because the guy's ownership removes the Ravai status. But a Jewish person's fruit, Rabbi Yehuda would agree, that does apply in Syria. So not like we said before, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's nothing in Syria at all. He says, no, we're not going that far. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like Beis Shammai completely, no. Basically, what's he saying? Ein lanachri Karen Ravai b'Syria. There's no Karen Ravai with the guy's vineyard. And that's as far as it goes. back to the view of Rabbi and Beis Shammai. Shmuel bar Abba asked, Beis Shammai Emrim, it's a lot of the same phrases back and forward here. Beis Shammai Emrim, lo lamdu neter avoy ena b'masa sheni. That neter avoy was learned from masa sheni. K'mada tema ein masa sheni b'shvius. During the Shemitah there's no masa sheni. So similarly, ein neter avoy, ken avoy doesn't apply b'shvius during the Shemitah year. Now, if that's the case, we could say, now year 3 and year 6 of the 7-year cycle, is there Masa Sheni? Any offers? No.
That's right.
Why not?
Right.
There's Masa Oni in year 3 and year 6. So if there's no Masa Sheni year 3 and year 6, maybe, maybe there's no Netar Avoy either in year 3 and year 6. Oh, Rabbi Yosef, there's a big difference between year 3, year 6, and Shvita. He says, Shlishis and Shvishis, 3 and 6, Avi Shem ben Masa Sheni. You're right, there's no Masa Sheni that year, but Yesh Bahen Masa Ani. There is Masa Ani, which is instead of it. And it's as if Masa Sheni applies, therefore the Din Ravoy applies. Whereas, Shvis, Ein Ba Masa Kalika. There is no Chiyav Masa at all, right? There's nothing in its way instead of Masa Sheni. Therefore, no Din Ravoy will apply because that's learned from Masa Sheni. There's nothing in year 7. There's absolutely nothing. Okay, we can have some breathing space. Right, that's it. Right, what have we got here? Rabbi Yehuda's Din. There's no Din Netar Ravoy in Surya. Okay. Now, Rabbi Bibi said the reason is we learn Ravoy from Masa Sheni. So it's like Masa Sheni, there's no din of it in Surya. Now Haifa, who was an Amoira, Sha'al Harav, he asked the following. Rabbi Yehuda said, Lo lamdu netar avoy ela Masa Sheni. The whole source of Ravoy was from Masa Sheni. So if that's the case, Kamada Tema ein Masa Sheni v'Surya. You told me there's no Masa Sheni in Surya. So similarly, Dichvase, ein netar avoy v'Surya. Karavoy also shouldn't apply in Surya. But according to that, Dichvase, now why do we not say therefore? Now with a carbon taida, you have to bring 40 loaves, correct? 40 loaves, yeah? And you give a truma to Hashem. Talking about the Kohenim, right? You have to give 4 to the Kohenim, right? And the Chachamim learn Gzer Shava between this truma to trumas Maseh. He says, Lo lamdu trumas taida, ela b'trumas Maseh. The idea of trumas taida, the 4 loaves you have to give the Kohenim, is learned from trumas Maseh, which is the truma you separate from the Maseh, right? Now, according to Yehuda, we should learn about the place where truma applies. So let's say, if you're going to start, Kamada Tema, just like you're telling me, Ein Trumas Maseh Bamidbar, look, it didn't apply Trumas Maseh when they were in the desert. There was no Maestros there, only when they got to the land. So Dech Maseh, Laitei Trumas Taida Bamidbar. There should not be the Trumas Taida either in the Midbar. Now they brought Carbon Taida properly, like other Carbonas. So you should suggest that the idea of separating 4 loaves should not apply in the Midbar. Rabbi Sai, this is another example where I've said to you before, and I'll say it again. The Yerushalmi often compares an idea we say there, we'll apply it to here and say the same idea. So we were talking about learning Netar Avoy from Masa Sheni. So Yerushalmi says, well if you do that, let's learn Trumas Taida from Trumas Maseh. Yeah? I mean, why the 4 loaves out of the 40 from Trumas Maseh, which is Truma you separate out of grain, why we should, because they're called Truma. That's what the Yerushalmi's done. You see that? That's what the Yerushalmi's done. They're called Truma. Right, the same idea should apply. That's typical Yerushalmi for you. So what's the answer? Why don't you say, therefore, that Trumas Maseh, so there should be no Trumas Taida in the Midbar? Rabbi Yosef says, they didn't learn all the din of Truma from there. They're not comparing it all the way. It's just about the shir. We're not talking about other dinim. The main dinim are mentioned in the Torah. We don't need to mention Trumas Maseh. We're mentioning the shiur. As per Netar Avoy is not really explained in the Torah, so we had to learn it from Masa Sheni. So he wants to compare it in everything to Masa Sheni. But Trumas Taida, we know what it is. It's 4 loaves, and that's all we're learning. The idea of 4 loaves. It's a 10th, right? Trumas Maseh is a 10th of the Maseh, right? Tani, we learned the Tosefta. He He says, Loin is Chaim Yisrael b'neter avoi. When did neter avoi come about? Remember, neter avoi is just according to those who say it applies to other trees as well. Yeah, Ker avoi and neter avoi are interchangeable. But Ker avoi is a vineyard, and other Rishonim hold neter avoi, which is other trees as well. So Loin is Chaim Yisrael b'neter avoi, Ela la'ach abayis rishon, after 14 years of coming into the land, which is Sheva Shekivshu, 7 years of conquering, with Sheva Shechilku, and 7 years of dividing up, right, between the Shotim. Okay? Rochista said, Asher Rabbi Yehuda, Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. The view of Yosef Rabbi Yehuda was said, was B'shidas Rabbi Yehuda Avoi. It's like Rabbi Yehuda, his father. The way Rabbi Bibi explained it. Commander Rabbi Yehuda Amar, just like Rabbi Yehuda said, Lai Lamdu Net HaRavai Erev Masechet. So we're doing another one now. Right. We learned Ravai from Masechet. Fine. The commander Tema, just like we say, Ein Masechet B'Surya, Masechet doesn't apply in Surya. Dech Maseh will also say, Ein Net HaRavai B'Surya. So Net HaRavai should also not apply in Surya. So far, so good. Kain Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Amar, so that's what Rabbi Yehuda said, and he wants to say, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda said the same idea. Let's see what he said. Lai Lamda Net HaRavai Ele Masechet, right? Ravai is learned from Masechet, fair enough. Therefore, Commander Tema Ein Masechet Ela La'ach Abayis Rishana, but Masechet only applies after 14 years, so therefore we say the same thing. So also, Net HaRavai only applies after 14 years. So here what we said, just like we want to compare this to Masechet. Masechet doesn't apply in Surya, this one doesn't apply in Surya. Masechet doesn't apply till after 14 years, so therefore Net HaRavai should also only apply after 14 years. But our Rabbi Yosef, they're not necessarily saying the same thing, the father and the son. No. He, the Shittas B'nai, it could be Rabbi Yehuda's din is like his son Rabbi Yosef's din, because one of these dinim is more extra than the other one. One is a primary din and one is like an extra din. He says the idea of an exemption in Surya for types of produce, that's a secondary din. And Lamda Me'aba Esreshana is learned from the fact of the 14-year exemption. Just like 14-year exemption, so Surya is an exemption. But Surya is learned from the 14-year exemption. You see? That's what he wants to say. The din of Rabbi Yehuda, we could learn it from Rabbi Yossi's din. There was no Ravai 14 years, so there's no din in Surya. But you can't say the other way around. Ein Abayis Rishana Lamda Surya. The din of Rabbi Yossi that you didn't have in the 14 years, you can't learn that from Rabbi Yehuda's din that it didn't apply in Surya. Even if there's nothing in Surya, it might still apply in the first 14 years. So one is much more an obligation, you'd think. Right? And it's a bigger chiddush to say that there was nothing for 14 years. Whereas Surya, to say it didn't apply in Surya, well, okay, big deal. It was only a private conquest. Whatever it is. The Gemara brings a brisa now. It explains the view of Rabbi Yehuda. It says, V'vashana chamishis, and in the 5th year, after Arla, after Net HaRavai, in the 5th year, Tachlu es Peah, you can now have the fruit. Rabbi Yosef Glili Omer, he said the word Lahesif Lachem, Harei Akil Moisif Peras Chamishis HaPeras Harei, you can increase the 5th year produce onto the 4th, to equate them and say, Ma Peras Chamishis Lebalim, the 5th year goes to the owners, it's Chulid, so Peras Revis Lebalim. According to this opinion, even the stuff in the 4th year goes to you. You can be Mekadosh a woman with it. Right? And the Kedushin will be Chal. And it's your money. It's considered your money according to this view who we just quoted, right? It's not Mom and Gabaya. He's saying Ravai is your money. This is another brisa which is explaining Rabbi Yehuda that calls it your money. Now, Rabbi Yosef Glili will fit in like this. Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yosef, Shem, Rabbi Yochanan, answered Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Yehuda. This opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, this brisa, Rabbi Yosef Glili fits in. Kamad Rabbi Yehuda, Isa, Kenachasa. Rabbi Yehuda treats it as your money, right? He says it's yours. You can be Mekadosh a woman with it. Rabbi Yosef Glili, Isa, Kenachasa. He also makes it your nachasim. He also treats it as being yours. Okay? According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's yours, properly yours. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yehuda by Korav Zira. Rabbi Yehuda asked in front of Zira. Kedivrei Mishu Isa Kenachasa. Now, according to the one who says it's yours, so that's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Mahu. Now, wait a minute. How much is it yours? That produce, Ravoi, right? It's yours. Thank you very much. Sheichai b'maestros. Do you have to take meiser on that? Has it got some sanctity at all? Or is it completely yours and you have to take meiser on it? Amalei says, Kadam Rabbi Yerushalmi Levi, Dam Rav Shem Levi. He said, Lai say tama halacha zu. Not just this halacha you got doubt. And a kol halacha shirafefes bevestin. Any halacha you're not sure, they're wavering. You don't know what to do. Say ma tzibur noyeg. Go and see what the community does, and I can follow them. Right? Since the tzibur obviously do things was right. But the fact is, we see that the community do not separate maestros from Peres Ravali. So it's obviously potter for maestros. But Amar Rabbana said, wait a minute. If you would say that his question was according to Beis Shammai, fair enough. I don't care what people do. It's like Beis Shammai is wrong. We don't follow Beis Shammai. If he was going on the din of Beis Shammai, it's not relevant to us. Because yes, Beis Shammai, people follow Beis Shammai, definitely not. Allah like Beis Hillel. There's no raya from people doing something if it's the view of Beis Shammai. And the same thing here. The doubt of Rav Yehuda is according to the fact that Ravoi is considered Momen Baalim, which is based on Beis Shammai in our Mishnah. But we don't take on like that. According to Beis Hillel, Ravoi is heavenly. It's Momen Gavoya. It's not yours. So the question, do you take Meiser on it? But it's not yours. So the dinner of Yerushalmi Levi is not really relevant here. You're telling me old people don't take. Yeah, but that's Beis Shammai who said it's yours, or whatever. We don't look at Beis Shammai, we look at Beis Hillel. Rav Avin said, Klum lamdu net Ravoi adam Masechet. Back to what we said before. We've learned net Ravoi from Masechet. Kamada tema ein Masechet chai b'maisros. If there's no maestros from Masechet, you don't have to separate Masa. Although it's your money, the same thing here. You don't have to separate maestros from Neto Ravoi, even though it's your money. Okay? You don't have to do it. It's your money, but you don't have to separate any maestros. Now, so what is it here? We're saying, do you have to separate maestros here? Okay? Now usually, what's the order usually? First you separate Truma. Yes? And then you would separate, Rabbi said, what comes after Truma? Any offers? Maser Rishon for the Levi. And then Maser Sheni is later on in the process. So why does the Gemara say Maser Sheni is not Chayav but Maestros? I mean, how are you going to take Maestros out of Maser Sheni? Maestros have already been given before you get to the Maser Sheni stage. So some want to say, it's talking about a case where you separated Maser Sheni in the wrong order. You first were mafresh Maser Sheni b'shibalim before you separated Truma and Maser Rishon. And in that situation, you did not separate from the Maser Sheni Truma and Maser Rishon, and nevertheless you are still exempt from separating them from Maser Sheni. He says that's a dochuk. I mean, why should we learn Netter Avoy from Maser Sheni? It was done with an Avera. Okay, if you look in the Hebrew Art Scroll, there's a massive big paragraph talking about it. But we'll move on. Where are we now? Rabbi Bo, yeah? Shem Ruchia? Yeah, Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Now, a similar thing about Maser Sheni. Let's see. Isas Maser Sheni b'Yerushalmi. A Maser Sheni dough in Yerushalmi, according to Rameh, who holds its mom and Gavaya, it's not really your money at all, but this dough is Patura min Chala. You do not have to separate Chala and give to the Cohen, because it's only on your dough. According to Rameh, this Maser Sheni is Mom and Gavaya, it's not yours. But according to Yehuda, there's Mom and Baalim, then it's your dough, and you will be Chaim Chala. Rav Yehuda said, that's the dough that was made in Yerushalmi. So the question, is it Chaim Chala, Potem Chala, is it your dough, is it Mom and Baalim or not? Aval Big Wulin, if it was made outside Yerushalmi, there's no argument. Rav Yehuda agrees you're potter from challah because you can't eat it. You can't eat the challah. You can't eat this Maser Sheni dough outside Yerushalayim. So therefore, it's mom and baalin, it's mom and gavaya. So therefore, there's no chiyuv to separate challah from it. Rabbi Baba Cohen, Kedivrei Mishu Mechayev B'Peret. Okay, according to the one who says Peres Ravoi does have the din of Peret, which is what Beis Shammai said in our Mishnah. Mahu, what's the din with a dough which has Kedushas Ravoi? Let's say you redeemed Ravoi fruit, you used the money and you bought grain and you made a dough. Now, are we going to tell me Shetehei Chayeves B'Chala? Do you have to separate Chala from the dough that you bought with Maser Sheni? What is it again? With Peres Ravoi, Right. Peret. So yeah, a dough which was bought with the money of Kedushas Ravai. Okay. And you use the money and you bought a dough, is it Chayiv with Chala or not? Okay, it says here, if Beis Shammai held, Beis Shammai say Peret applies, right? The small grapes. Now if they hold it's Mom and Balim, therefore Chala should be Chayiv. Or maybe they say no, it's Mom and Gavaya. But Peret and Olas you're Chayiv because there's some riboy for it. So it's not miyuchad a riboy for chala. So maybe Beis Shammai say you're potter from chala. So the one had peret and olas you're chayev. But does that mean other things as well? Are you chayev chala as well? So if you have peres ravai and you convert it into a chala, into a dough, do you have to separate the chala from the Cohen or not? So that's the question. Amalek, the answer back, Lai Rabbi Yehuda, is this not the dinner of Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda says it's mom and balim, it's considered your money and your chayev chala. The Sarfina Meima, and the whole thing you wanted to say, all these halachas, Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda passing the Ravai, we always say all the time, Beis Shammai, that's all very well. Oh yes, it's Mom and Balim, but that's Beis Shammai. We're not interested in Beis Shammai. Therefore, this din is Rabbi Yehuda, that Ravai is considered Mom and Balim, and your Chayiv Chala, whatever it is, but that is the view of Beis Shammai, but we're interested in the view of Beis Hillel. And Beis Hillel is Mom and Gavaya, and therefore you won't be Chayiv Chala on Mom and Gavaya. Okay. So what we got? We said oilalize are these clusters that are not developed. So the question is, what happened if the whole vineyard is just clusters not developed? The whole vineyard. What are you going to do? Nothing. There's no proper clusters there. Rabbi Lezer says, you know what? You keep the lot. The balabais. Keep the lot. Don't have to give any away. Rabbi Kiva, because there's nothing. You only give the poor when they get their bit. Here there is no their bit. The whole thing is rubbish. So you keep the lot. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Kiva says you give away the lot. So when you're cutting your vineyard, don't take the clusters, the underdeveloped clusters. So you have to leave them for the poor. But that is kitifsa when you're cutting something for yourselves. It ain't botzer, but if there's nothing for yourself, where are you going to get these underdeveloped ones? If they're underdeveloped, the whole thing, keep them up. We say no. It doesn't say it doesn't say from your vineyard, part of your vineyard. No, the whole thing's underdeveloped, you have to give the lot. Why quote the other pasuk? He says, there's another din it's telling me. That the poor do not have a right to take the underdeveloped clusters before you have started your cutting. Before you start cutting, they can't get their bit. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. That's what these psukim are telling me. So we've got machlokes. Who said what? Rabbi Lezer said if it's all underdeveloped, you keep them up. Rabbi Kiva says no, you still have to give everything away to the poor, and they have no psukim. Now, according to Rabbi Lezer, by giving it, there'll be nothing left for the balabais. So you take it all for yourself. And what about the din of peret? Peret, the single grapes. Similarly, with peret, which cools at the time of the cutting, it ain't batzir if there's no general harvest for you, for the owner, because the whole thing is falling, the whole thing became peret, ain't peret. The poor get nothing. So according to Lezer, not just the fact that the clusters are full of, to be chayav olos, there's no chayav olos unless there is a botzeh, but sada botzeh. You're going to have your cutting, you have a harvest, next to a harvest at the same time for the poor, whatever it is. But also, if achalasan chaya, let's say all your stuff was eaten by animals. As soon as you cut it, it's all eaten by animals, all your stuff. Lo, there's no din of the olos for the poor. Yeah, they get what they get when you get what you get. But if all your stuff is eaten away, according to Meir, once it's all eaten away, the animals ate a lot, then they don't get. Now, what is batzir, which is chayav olos, according to Lezer? How much clusters is considered a harvest? And that is batzir, which is obligating olos for the poor. To Beis Shila, they said shlosh eshkolos, 3 clusters, shein oisim revir, which make a revir some wine. Less than 3 clusters, or less than a reverse, it doesn't apply. But Rabbi Kiva, Mekayim trade quite now. Rabbi Kiva fitted his pshat. He said, if you get nothing, they get everything. And he fitted it in with the psukim. What does Rabbi Lezer do with this pasuk? Rabbi Kiva brought it as support to his view. He says, Shalai Taimada say Hayil, since we don't say, look, the poor have no right to have the oilers before you start cutting. You think, right, okay, they can't come before you, fair enough. Therefore, you might think, Yizka Bahed Balabais. But if they can't take it before you, maybe you take it. Maybe you can acquire it before you start cutting. You see what the logic is there? Because they can't come before you, maybe you get it all. That's why the Apostle says, no, it doesn't mention a cutting. Even before the cutting, you can't take it. You definitely can't take it. Now, this Lashon here, he's saying you might have thought you can take it before they take it. Now, where's that coming from? You might take it before they take it. Why would I think that? So then, take away the whole mitzvah then. What, you're going to take it before they get there? So how's that working? So, they talk about it. Some say, it's Pasha Mitzvah, of course you can't take oilers. I don't need a source for that. Rebbe Lezer needs to bring a source from a pasuk, because Rebbe Lezer holds, look, if there's no cutting for you, you don't have to give oilers. Since therefore it depends on your cutting, you might have thought before you start cutting, you can take the oilers for yourself. According to Rebbe Lezer. Therefore Rebbe Lezer has a drasha, no, you can't do it. Rebbe Kiva holds, it doesn't depend on what you cut for yourself. Even if the whole thing is oilers, you have to give it all away. So it's partial you can't take before you cut. Of course you can't take what's there. I don't need a pasuk to tell you that. That's what Moshe Feinstein said. So maybe according to Rebbe Lezer, you might have thought, since he says, look, if there's nothing, you get to keep it, okay, we have a pasuk telling you don't take it before you start cutting. You understand? But according to Rebbe Kiva, you give it away to the poor. Of course you can't take it beforehand. I don't need a pasuk for that. Okay. Where are we? Halacha Zayin. Rabbi Sai, nearly there, Rabbi Sai, yeah? Only 7 black left. Magdish has Kavoi. How are we doing? Ooh, it's 2 minutes to 7. Yeah, let's do Mishnah. Magdish has Kavoi. Ad Shaloi no Doilers. Right. You make everything Hekdesh before you notice the Oilers now. You don't know. You can't tell if there's going to be underdeveloped clusters, and you've made everything Hekdesh. Ein Oilers Vanim. They don't go to the poor. Mishnah Doilers. If you knew about these underdeveloped clusters first, and then you make it Hekdesh, the poor people get them. Rabbi Yossi says, you know what, the poor, anything grows from now on, the poor should give a reward, give a payment for anything that grows in Hekdesh status. Hekdesh. You follow? So Hekdesh acquired it at this time. Anything that grows from now, which is still connected to that, the poor should pay for any new growths that they get. Now, what is the situation of shikha with a vine? Well, you can't go back and take it. But oris, now if it's like the vines which are high up on woods, on trellises, Carl, if ever where you go past it and you forgot to take it, and you remembered in a place, she'ena yachalisha is yada velila, you can't go back and take it now, then that's shikha. You've gone past it, you can't reach it. But if you can still reach out, then it's still considered you can go back and take it. Over roglios, now roglios are the vines that are on the ground, for people to walk on, other people's feet. There the dinner shikha is mishiyava mimena, when you've gone past it. Even though you can reach out, once you've gone past it, that's it. Tamar Tanina, we've learned in Mishnah Masechet. The men of Yerichai, Hamatirian Begimziais Shel Hekdesh. Now, there were branches of these carob trees where their fathers earlier on had made them Hekdesh. And the Chachamim objected. People used to use these growths from these trees. Now, why did they make them Hekdesh? Let's see. Do you not agree? These things grow from Hekdesh. Your fathers, your ancestors made all this stuff Hekdesh. And Shana Suin, you shouldn't get benefit. And then these people were taking the branches. Why? When they made it holy, it was the big stumps they made holy. Because people were stealing them. So they made the stumps holy. People of might, would take them with power. And therefore, in order to guard against that, they made them holy. But they didn't have intention to be makdish the branches, so the branches were permitted to get benefit. That's what the men of Yerichai said. That it was never intended that everything should be holy, just the stumps. Mara Bodasorimim, and what did the Chachamim object? Shcheres and Peros, he says the beams and the fruit, Tigdishu, they made everything holy, the branches as well. Now that might be one reason. Or maybe, Afilu tema, if you're going to tell me Kairos Hekdisha, they made the stumps holy, but pears, lighters were not the fruit. But the Chachamim was still worried. Maybe maybe they had a question about it. When you make a field holy, can you decide, a tree field, you make it holy, can you leave the growth that are going to grow later for yourself? Or do we say, look, they're coming from Hekdesh. Hekdesh is chal, right? You can't leave it. So if you're going to say Hekdesh is chal on growths of its own accord, maybe according to the Chachamim, the men only made the entry Richai, that maybe the branches, maybe they never made it holy, but they still forbade it because there's din Hekdesh on it. So that was the question, is there din Hekdesh on these growths that come later on or not? Alright, so the one just gives one answer. Where are we up to? We'll do 2 more lines. We learned the front from our Mishnah. Now the Tanna Kama said, if you made your vineyard holy, you already know about the Olodos that are there, and you made it holy, they go to the poor. They're going to carry on growing in the Hekdesh field. The Aniyim don't have to give payment to Hekdesh. And the reason is, because you had das, when you made it holy, you're going to leave anything that grows from Olodos is going to be going to the poor. And even though it grows from Hekdesh, it's not holy. You're going to leave wherever that grows. You see, you're allowed to leave the growths and leave it for the poor. But then the Gemara says, Shani, no, that's different. You can't make something Hekdesh if it's not yours. If the Aniyim already have a right, so all these Olodos, as far as this is concerned, it's not your field anymore. They already have a right to the Olodos. And if that's the case, you can't remove their schus by making it Hekdesh. You can't remove their right. It's theirs already. You can't make it Hekdesh and remove that. Okay. I think we will stop here.